Yes, sir. Welcome back. This is the Commissioner's Conversation. I am your host, Commissioner Gordon, and joining me today, it is my honor to have my good friend, Lericia Harris. She is a sideline reporter. She is a host. She is a writer. She is all great things that having to do with sports. And she is on the show because whenever we talk, I always have, an appreciation for people who I can converse with. And it's not like you talking to somebody who's just see things one way, who's just a fan or somebody like that. A generally good sports mind is what I would say. So
Thank you.
welcome, Lericia.
Thank you for having me, Commissioner.
So how have you been? I know you've been busy. I saw you all over the television screen. It seemed like every time I looked up, you were right there.
I'm good. I'm good. I can honestly say that 2020 football season was one that I will forever remember. Um, but I say that in a good way because it's a blessing at the same time. Like I was able to still work, you know. So
Right.
I don't take any of that for granted. But not only was I able to just work, I was able to still be safe, um, despite the pandemic and all the craziness that happened. But it is definitely a season I will never forget at all.
Well, and talking about being safe, I want you to kind of elaborate on that because we know that there were outbreaks with some of the schools. Now, our intro that into saying that Lericia was a sideline reporter for plenty of games and she went to plenty of schools. So she had to travel to a bunch of places and kind of go through these COVID protocols that we kind of think are second nature now, but before it was like something brand new. It was fresh and new, and we were all like in shock of what we had to do to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
But if you could kind of elaborate on like in traveling to a lot of these schools, what did you have to actually do? Like what was your life like pre-game and post-game?
Mhm. Okay, so before we even travel, like we're required to take COVID tests. Um, there were different forms of COVID tests. But now they have a variety of different types of COVID tests. But we did the one that seems to or had been popular at the time, the nasal COVID test. You send it in. You either had to do it virtually with a doctor, or you go to an actual location they tell you to go to. But you take that test and you have to await your results. You have to make sure you're clear before you're even able to travel.
Right.
That's number one. And then depending on what school you go to and whatever their conference protocols are, you might have to take another one or two more. And of course, you have to follow the mask mandates and get those temperature checked, like all of that stuff. So it was a lot, very very different from before. I was a little nervous at first about going on flights and stuff like that. So initially, like I'm being so real, like I was nervous, but initially it was based on your location. So it was the certain games that you would get would be based on your location, within driving distance, that sort of
Right.
thing. So, I mean, I drove to a game that was like 6 hours away one time, just because you feel safe, you feel
Safe.
safe doing it.
Now, now, were there instances where you would go to a school and they would have a certain set of rules, or that conference would have a certain set of rules, and then you'd go to another school and it was a little more relaxed, and you were like, "Wait a minute, hold on, why aren't you doing that?"
It was relaxed, but in a way that was still strict, if that makes sense. I
Okay.
hope that made sense. So where like you just had some schools who were like stupid strict, where I can only stay in this corner at all. And then a lot of it too was based on stadium, right? And the space in between the players and the bench, like all of that. So every little detail that you can think of played a role in some of the rules and protocols for COVID at various schools. So whereas one school, for example, like at NC State, who, if you've ever been to their stadium, if you ever look at it, they don't have that much space like on the sidelines, like behind the benches or anything. So because everything is so spaced out now, you have to make sure you're practicing social distancing, all of that. I had to stay in a certain corner. Like this was my space over here, and I couldn't pass this
Okay.
area.
So you
If
have
I needed to get on the side, I had to go up, and they had like the stadium circled off for me, like in that front row, so I could walk that way. But but that's again because of the stadium was so small, like they didn't have a lot of space on the sidelines. Whereas, um, like North Carolina, UNC in Chapel Hill,
right.
they have like an extra space back there. So I'm still physically distanced from the players and their bench,
Right.
and I still have space where I can walk behind. So that's what I mean. Whereas like some places were a little stricter than others, it was only because of, the necessary steps that needed to be taken to ensure safety and that they were following the necessary protocols that the conferences put in place.
Now, in that, and then seeing that, because you mentioned like a lot of times there wasn't a crowd in the stands.
Mhm.
Do you think like it really had an impact? Because us watching the game, it's football. We're sitting here, we're at home, we're watching football. But do you think that it impacted the game? Because you've done this where the stands have been packed,
Yes.
and now it's dead empty. And it's how much did it impact the game in terms of the players?
I think it had a heavy impact on the players at first, coming out the gate with it, because I mean no one knew what to expect or how that was going to actually be. But I think as the season went on, the players were able to adjust themselves, and then also too the schools did a good job at pumping in sound, sometimes. So it seemed as if people were in the stands and stuff like that. And eventually we did see, some fans were permitted into the stadium. But initially, I do think it played a role in everything. For example, my very first game was in Boone, North Carolina, and
Mm,
App State.
App State, I know exactly where you are.
Yes. And so, mind you, they have a beautiful stadium right in the mountains, but it's in the mountains. So when it's raining, it's raining.
Mm.
There was no one there, like no fans or anything. So all you hear is literally the sound of players in rain. So imagine that as your first game, right?
Right.
All these players, whether they're freshmen just coming into this or not, you're accustomed to hearing some other sound.
Somebody screaming or something.
Yes, something. And now you can literally hear the player across from you breathing. There's nobody else there. So I do feel like it played a major impact in just the game itself in general. Because I'll be honest, I was like, whoa, this is different. This was different. I low key at one point was like, oh my gosh, this is boring without, like hearing fans and
Right.
some of the antics and everything like that. It was different. It was different.
So one thing I've always wondered, and I see the commentators, everybody does their pregame prep, their work, they interview coaches. I've always wondered, like, have you ever felt like you were, I won't say used by a coach or manipulated by a coach, like a coach would send you out to say one thing and like kind of give what their game plan may have been, and then they did the exact opposite of what they told you because they wanted to surprise the other team or anything like that?
No, that has never happened to me at all. And I can, you know, I'm thankful that that never happened to me. And I think it speaks to the rapport I get to build with the coaches, and the staff. Because when you build a good rapport with people, they don't have a problem with telling you stuff, even if it's something like, hey, I'm gonna share this with you right now, but can you just hold it till game day?
Gotcha.
Cool beans, I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna wait until you tell me, okay, it's fine. let's go talk about it. But no, that's never happened to me before. All of the coaches and staff that I've interacted with from every team that I've been or had the opportunity to talk to, they've always been great with just sharing information. Now, sometimes, if they look a little frustrated, they might not share as much. um, but no, typically they give me the game plan, and that's really what it is. Not unless something just happens and
And
they
they
have to
really,
change it.
right.
Yeah.
So now with that though, how has that changed? Because I know usually you probably were used to doing it kind of in person, face to face, and
Mhm.
then I'm assuming you had to go via like Zoom
Yep.
or FaceTime or something. So how did that interaction kind of change with between you and the coaches?
Well, I felt like the only time it was hard, or I would say, I won't say hard, but for lack of better terms, I'll stick with that. When you had like a new coach that you never worked with before,
Hmm.
so you have to really try to give off good energy, make sure that you are um, truly trying to pull things out of that coach. And it can be a little difficult virtually,
I
when
can
you're not,
imagine.
yeah, like when you're not in person, and you just can't get that human interaction, that connection where you might can find certain things that might, pull stuff out of coaches more. So that did make it a little tough sometimes when you had to just talk to maybe coaches that you never worked with before. But for ones who I've worked with before and already knew or know, you just picked up conversation. like, like, you never stop. And that made it good. But I will say it was different. Not being able to actually physically talk to the players in person. Because that's always fun where you can, go to the facility. They might just be around. You can just really kick it and talk to them like on a real chill sort of vibe. And now only being able to talk to them over the phone, not really, being able to get close to the players like that. Um, that was something totally different. And I had to get adjusted to it.
And I can imagine that would be as difficult as you made it sound, because usually with that you could probably be able to get a feel for the team, like the confidence,
Yeah.
some of the things that they're going to go for, and not having that, be a factor, it kind of makes it tough to kind of gauge. And so I often would like to know what was one of your favorite experiences this season? Because I know it was difficult, but what was one of the most favorite experiences? And then beyond that, like what was one of the most your favorite appearances? Like when you got to the game and you just watched this player go bananas.
Okay, so the first thing that came to my mind with what you said was the Boca Raton Bowl.
Okay.
And mind you, this is the end of the season, where you hear all these stories about Zach Wilson and BYU. I never got to cover them. So this was my first time, truly covering them and learning just way more in detail about the school, more than I already knew, just because I get to really talk to the players and really talk to the coaches more, specifically about their game plan and how they go about stuff, just details that I wouldn't be able to get, on a normal basis. So I'm at the game. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. This is going to be a great game, really exciting game. But I'm watching and I'm really taken aback by Zach Wilson. Like, you know how you just hear people talk about him,
Right.
but to physically see it for yourself and the swiftness and ease that he just threw the ball with. And then you have these other players who are around him who are laying out catching passes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, okay. Seeing BYU in person, you're like, oh, okay, these boys can play. Like these young men are good.
And see, it's crazy that you say that, because I often had back and forth with people because we see who we see locally. Like we knew Justin Fields, we know Trevor, we know these guys locally, but we don't really get that opportunity to see Zach like that.
Yeah.
And so how would you compare the three, like in terms of probably the top three quarterbacks, arguably, that are going to be going in the draft?
They are all different. Like they are all different. Like if you look at Zach Wilson, I'm not even being funny, but like he really reminds me of like such a young kid. Like he's very he's very humble. He when you talk to him, he like talks with this softness. Whereas when you go to talk to Trevor Lawrence, he's like already a super big dude, and he has the
Right.
hair, so he's always flipping. But at the same time, like he's a humble guy as well, but he just exudes this aura about himself. From the initial conversation about, like, he just exudes a different aura about himself. And Justin Fields, he also exudes an aura about himself, and it's just this leadership aura. Like he exudes this fighter like mentality. And so though they are different people, they all have different qualities, but they are all great quarterbacks, and they will all fit in on someone's team at the next level in a great way. It's just a matter of finding, which offense, which one will fit their mold best for them. But that's how I saw it. Just because I am the person who brings about the personality
Right.
more so than anything else. So that was what I saw from, like, for myself. It was just something so different about each of their personalities and the qualities, and just merely holding a conversation with them that really spoke volumes.
Now I will ask, because I feel like I'm going to put you on the spot right now. If you're starting a team and you have to in this year's draft, and let's say you have one of the pick, let's say you have pick number one, just
Mm.
for blanks and giggles, you got pick number one, and you need a quarterback. Which way would you go?
Dang. I only need a quarterback. I don't need anything else.
You need a QB. You got to get it. You got to get a guy behind the center.
Okay, but I'm saying, do I have like other good targets and
Well, we're gonna assume you have receivers to throw to. You just don't have the signal caller.
Mhm. Oh man, you definitely put me on the spot with this one here. Okay, just because. Oh, you really put me on the spot. They're all great quarterbacks, all really good quarterbacks. And some of your listeners are probably gonna look at me like, "What? Why did she say him?" Well, I'm saying Zach Wilson from
There you go.
BYU, and I'm
Okay.
sticking with it.
Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
Yeah.
once again, you have had the opportunity that most of us have not, and that's to see him live, up close, in personal. And that's the biggest thing, that's one of the biggest decision makers that coaches make.
Yeah.
You can always watch tape and look at a guy's mechanics or what he does, but when you actually see it and it's 2-3 feet away, 6 feet away, but it's right there,
Yeah.
that's when decisions actually become made. So there's no problem with your pick at all. Like I said, locally, most of the times we go for the guys that we know. And being that Trevor and Justin are both from around the area, I won't say Atlanta, but around the area.
Or in Kennesaw.
Right. They're around the area, that people tend to say,
Yeah.
they kind of hug up to them and say, these are our guys.
They're biased.
Right, basically. I tried not to say it. But yes, we tend to be a little biased.
Yeah.
What team, like, if going into next year, what team are you looking for to say, okay, whether it's a team on the rise, someone that you saw or a player that you saw, and you're like, I'm looking forward to watching them next year. What team are you looking forward to taking from the 2020 season to the 2021 season?
I think I gotta give some love to the group of five. Um, it's several of those teams, like really, I think had an opportunity to showcase who they are, their skills and what they can do. And I think they really shocked a lot of people this season. Well, last season. We're in 2021 now. So in 2020, they shocked a lot of people. But to be more specific, I think I would have to say definitely looking forward to Liberty,
Okay,
seeing what Liberty is gonna do. Of course, Cincinnati,
good one. Yeah.
uh, seeing how they continue that momentum that they sort of built up. Um, I want to see what the Chanticleers are going to
Uh,
do well.
Coastal Carolina. Okay.
Yeah, want to see what they can do. They had a few hiccups, but I'm curious as to how they will continue. Um, of course, I gotta say my Gators. Gotta say my Gators, man.
Speaking of bias,
um, and who else? Who else? Oh, I'll say BYU too, because we know that they will be losing a quarterback because Zach Wilson is,
right,
yeah,
he'll be in the draft.
BYU, because they had some great targets, even depth wise as well. Oh yeah, UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay.
Like if you look at their roster, a lot of the guys that they played were younger guys, freshmen, sophomores. So they are going to be bringing back some uh some
Well,
heat.
he usually does. He does a great job of recruiting.
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah, the Tar Heels for sure, because watching some of their younger guys too, when I covered them, I was like, wait a minute. Especially the one guy, I can't, his name just slipped my mind, but I know he had come, like literally just come in from high school and was like just thrown in the fire. And he was out there having a ball going at it. So I want to see. Those are a couple of teams I'm anxious to see what's gonna
now, being out there, seeing as
happen.
many teams as you saw, did you did the playoffs play out like you thought it would? Did it, or was it a surprise somewhere in there?
I was kind of half and half. Like you were hoping for something different, but
Okay.
at the same time, you're like, you knew this was gonna happen. So I'll say I was half and half.
Because I'll be honest, I honestly thought that Clemson would do would probably beat Ohio State.
Yeah,
I thought, I mean, and no one saw Justin Fields putting together a Herculean effort to get out there with like what was cracked ribs and
right,
Fields
right.
throwing darts. But I assume that because of the amount of games that Clemson had played as opposed to Ohio State, that they would probably have a little bit more experience in terms of the season. And it just didn't play out that way.
Mhm. But
But
I really feel like a lot of that too. I don't know. I just really feel in my heart that if Justin Fields was not hurt, we would have seen something a little different.
okay,
And what I mean by that is because when you're hurt, you can push and push as hard as you want to,
right.
but it's like people still feel like okay, he's a little sluggish. Because I mean, we saw that matchup before, and it was
Right.
totally different. And so I really feel like attrition was one that just really, really hurt him this time around.
Yeah. So mm, now I'm not sure. Well, I know you're watching it, but I'll bring it over to the NFL. Like,
Uh-huh.
do you have what's your prediction for the Super Bowl? Like, we got the Super Bowl coming up this weekend. What do you think about that?
I think it's going to be a great game. Um, I am curious to see uh, the swiftness and quickness of the Bucks D line,
Hmm.
and how well Patrick Mahomes will maneuver that, or if he maneuvers it.
Right.
I am not a Tom Brady hater, but
Whenever you say something like that, we automatically know that the next statement is gonna come across like a Tom Brady hater. It's like
no,
no offense, but
listen, no offense to the man whatsoever. He will go out regardless if he wins or loses. He is going to go out as the greatest quarterback. Okay, I just don't want to see him win another one right now. I would really like to see Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey sort of take it again, especially after the record-breaking season that Travis Kelsey had this year. Like, don't get me wrong, Tom Brady he's the GOAT, but still. And
well,
I'm not even a Chiefs fan, okay? I'm not.
I'm no Tom Brady hater either. But I've always said, as a consolation prize to everybody who always throws up the 28-3 thing in my face anyway, that at least if he does win this ring,
He's not with the Patriots.
right? No, he's not with the Patriots. But even if he does win this ring, you can say, well, he's clearly the greatest quarterback, and it took the greatest quarterback in the land to defeat the Falcons from 28-3. But I'm also with you. I don't believe they'll win. Like I'm looking forward to Patrick Mahomes because I just don't think they can score.
Yeah.
With Kansas City like that. They're gonna have to try to slow the game down at some point in time and get the ball out of Mahomes' hands.
And
Um,
like Mahomes is just different. So
and
I'm just excited about seeing that. Like, what will we see from him that we haven't already seen?
right.
And same goes with Brady too. Like, because he'll switch it up on us in a minute as well. So
Yeah.
I'm I'm just ready to see a good game.
I've also said, and I'm not sure if will agree with this or not, but I've also said that if Patrick Mahomes can win this one,
Mhm.
no matter what he does the rest of his career, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, with a $500 million contract.
Money aside, yes. But
Okay, yeah. Money aside, for sure. For sure. I think we've seen enough to know, you know, that he's a great player.
right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that.
So Lericia, I would greatly appreciate you coming on the commissioner's conversation and joining me. I
Yeah.
hope that we get to do it another time. I also want to get you back on because we talked about it a little earlier. The HBCUs have SWAC and the MEAC starting up, and I want to get some of your thoughts. And as we get closer to the starting date, try to
Mhm.
get you back up.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know. I'm down. You know,
Cool.
I love talking HBCU football, man. I'm excited. We get to see something.
And see, I need that because, for many of us, we don't know a lot of the coaches. We don't know a lot of the players. We
Mhm.
just know names. We know the names of the school. We may know records. We know history of the schools.
Yeah.
But because they aren't the Alabamas, they aren't the LSUs, we don't know all the players' names. So I need that. I'm sure a lot of the fans need that. So we'll definitely be bringing you back to kind of enlighten us and educate us on who we need to be looking for, and and what team should we be kind of watching. So
But yes, for sure. I got you. I got you.
cool. So thank you again for joining us. And
Yes.
again, this is the Commissioner's Conversation. I am your host, Commissioner Gordon. I thank you for watching. Oh, my bad.